From a park referendum to infrastructure to Sumar Street to Union Pier, I talk exclusively with City of Charleston Councilman Stephen Bowden, District 10, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. City of Charleston Councilman Stephen Bowden, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks for having me, Quintin. Happy to join you as always.
Well, I appreciate it greatly. Needless to say, you are a member of the City of Charleston City Council, representing District 10, which is part of, I guess, mostly out of West Ashley, correct?
That's correct.
And I know you just got off a Zoom call with the City of Charleston City Council Committee about the park bond, which you all are hoping to get on November ballot. So as we sit here right now, what's the latest?
So that's a great place to start. I mean, there's so much exciting stuff going on in the city of Charleston right now, whether it's Sumar Street, which is near and dear to my heart, or Union Pier, which is going to make such a big impact on the future of our area, or a $70 million park bond so that we can construct new parks for folks who are moving here and live in areas that are a little bit underserved by the park system. Like my district, or Cainhoy eventually when more folks start to move out there. So we really need to think towards the future. And so I'm excited to share that we just advanced that $70 million bond referendum to the next stage, and there'll be a few more hoops to jump through. But I think that'll be on the November ballot for voters to make a decision about what they'd like to see going forward in terms of parks.
So right now, as you sit here, how many hoops do you have to jump over right now?
You have to ask the city's lawyers. I know they've told me, but I can't remember. I think there has to be a public hearing on that, which I think will occur at the next city council meeting, and then we have to do the typical 3 readings to get the ordinance in place. So with we only have 1 meeting a month during the summer, so we've got to be quick about it because we've got to make that decision by August. But it's looking good to move that forward and let the voters decide whether they're willing to pay a little bit extra per household so that we can really share in this incredible space that we're lucky to call home. The best part about Charleston's being outside, and so the more we can invest in parks, and like we were talking about just a second ago, for people like me who have a young child and would like to get that child out of the house, this will really be I think a great thing for our community going forward.
So as we sit here right now, what else will be included in that referendum?
So for my district, I know it'll be Bear Swamp Park, which is a potential new park with a lot of athletic fields, so that we can expand the city's recreation program in West Ashley. That's a real limiting factor right now for what kind of programs we can offer is how much field space we have available. So that will be huge. And then at the Bees Landing Rec Center, we'll be planning for a new 25-meter pool. Which I know folks in Shadow Moss can tell you the spaces we've got at our pool in our neighborhood are very limited. And obviously, like we said, everybody wants to be outside and swimming during the summertime in Charleston. And so we want to accommodate people. It's other things like, ball fields all around the area and a pool, an expanded pool at W.L. Stevens in West Ashley that will be year round. I believe is the plan to have that covered so that folks can use it during the wintertime too. So we'll spell that out in the ordinance so people know exactly what they're voting on, and that's critically important. I mean, when we ask people for their hard-earned money, they need to know what services they're getting out of that. So just like last year when I took to my constituents that I thought that we needed a small millage increase to their property taxes in order to pay city employees more money so that we can attract employees and so that we can fill these jobs that are providing the critical services like ditch digging that help us in big flooding events. And I genuinely don't believe that as long as we are being I believe that as long as we're being wise stewards of their resources, that people don't have a problem kicking in just a little bit extra to make sure that we can meet everybody's needs.
So with this referendum, Councilman, will the millage rate go up because of that?
Yes,
Okay.
it would, and that'll be spelled out in the ordinance exactly how much it'll go up. But with the number we picked, the 70 million, it would be for an average household roughly $50 a year.
Wow. Now, what are the tax implications of voting yes or versus no on this?
That's still what we have to figure out. We may massage the number that we ultimately put to the public, but yeah, I mean, it would be akin to some small increases that we've seen in the past, including this last year, to meet that shortfall of city employees that we've had, and that's made it a challenge to provide some of the services that citizens expect. And so, to me, $50 a year, especially. We don't always charge use fees to go to the parks like say the county does, and so we pay for it all up front, and so I think it's a just me, I think it's a relatively small ask. I know that's not easy to say for everybody, but I live in kind of that average price house, and I certainly would be more than willing to pay that little bit extra so that everybody can share in this incredible place we live in.
And this might be a silly question, Councilman, but will there be will it be a property tax increase? Will the home insurance rates increase because of this?
I don't think this will have any impact on home insurance rates, and really more green space means hopefully less flooding, which could help with some of our the ratings with the flood insurance system. So I think really it can only help on that front.
Now, would this also include added taxes on cars and boats, for instance?
This is for. I have to get back to you on that, but I think this would just be on homes.
Okay. Oh yes, sir. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
When you buy a home, you elect that 4% if it's your primary residence. That's what we're getting at.
Okay. And so let me reset, Councilman. What are the ongoing maintenance operations of recreation facilities right now in the city of Charleston?
They're significant, and that would be part of this bond. Is making sure that we are covering some of those deferred maintenance items that we may not have kept up with as well as we should have in the past. And so, I think parks across the city could expect to see some upgrades and some nicer facilities out of this. And we'll lay out specific projects that are big, capital projects. That's how we'd consider. But certainly, it'll go to maintenance. It'll go to upgrades. It'll go to things like providing shade at playgrounds. Which if you've ever touched one of those pieces of playground equipment in August, you know that is sorely needed.
Yes, sir. So what has not been kept up in the past that you all are looking at right now?
It's stuff like painting equipment. It just kind of starts to get that dilapidated look. It's a little less useful. We can always improve like bathrooms and those sorts of things. And so that'll all be a big part of this, is just when you go there, making that experience just a little bit nicer.
Yes, sir. And so I know I'm probably getting ahead of myself, and it's probably something you all will be discussing eventually. But do you think that the referendum will actually state that maintenance and operations will never end because of this referendum?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if the ordinance will say that, but absolutely. We know that we have those ongoing maintenance needs, and we talked about it in a different capacity yesterday in a public works committee meeting with regard to the infrastructure that we create to help with flooding. All that's great, and all these engineering plans are great. If there's a new development that we'll need to create new infrastructure for. Union Pier, I think, would also be a good example. That it's expensive to build this stuff at first, but you've got to keep in mind that there will be heavy maintenance costs going forward, or pump stations that we're building. We're trying to get better at that, making sure that we're going to have the money going forward to fulfill the maintenance needs for the infrastructure we're building.
And actually, that's a part of my questions that I have for you right now. But and I want to get to that in just a second. But okay, let's say, for instance, you get off council in the next 4 years, and somebody else comes on, and it's the same for the other council members. So, will this particular referendum have to be rewritten by then?
No, I think that can be a matter for the budget every year that we vote on. It's up to us to make sure we're asking the right questions. That when we spend the money to make a big capital improvement, that we are asking that next question of, okay, great, but how do we fund the maintenance on this going forward? And what's the plan to make sure we're doing that every year?
And this might be a complicated question, Councilman, but what would the city do with the excess money that they'll be collecting off all of this, if that's the case?
We're going to use it for exactly the purposes that we tell citizens we're going to use it for. So we'll use it for those projects we spell out. But another interesting idea that was raised during that meeting was leveraging this money for additional grants and things from the state, from the county, from the federal government. And I'll tell you that the city's been really good at doing that, which is why folks haven't seen more tax increases in recent years, because we've been very, very good at leveraging the money we have and using it to get grants from those other entities that have maybe a little bit deeper pockets than we do, and using those effectively. So, that just goes back to being wise stewards of the resources that, people give us. I mean, I never take for granted that people work hard for their money. I work hard for my money. And it would drive me absolutely crazy if I thought that city council was just spending it in wasteful ways. And I assure folks that we are doing our best not to do that. And we're trying to be very, very thoughtful about how we make these dollars go as far as they can.
And I'm also going ahead of myself again, council member, but let me ask you this. So when this whole, referendum takes place and you all start getting the money in, how much money do you need from those grants to keep this going?
We'll have to look and see what grants are available. Obviously, there's a ton of money available from the federal government for infrastructure projects right now. So, we just have to see what's available now, what comes available for, in the park space to be able to, use this money that we're getting from this bond, if it passes, to be the city match for whatever the grant is offering. So a lot of these would say something like the grant will give you 75% of the project cost, and the local sponsor or the city has to kick in the other 25%. And that's how we can really make this money go a long way.
Now, ideally, what type of money do you all have to match this? What would have to match this?
We'd have that $7 million in the ordinance. So we would put out a bond and get that money over the course of time, and then pay it back with the additional tax revenue we're getting from the other portion of this, which would be a small millage increase.
Now, Councilman, by doing this referendum, would raising taxes hurt the segment of the population that actually cannot afford that?
That's a very fair question, and something that we've got to be careful about. The kind of taxes that we're able to impose in the city to get the revenue we need is generally on property owners. Now, certainly those get passed down to people who rent, and that leads to a big, broader discussion about how we tackle affordable housing in the city. It should be no secret to anybody that costs are going up every day, and housing is outpacing other kinds of costs that are also rising. And so we had to, when we were thinking about this, we really had to balance how big of a burden are we willing to ask people to take on? How big of a burden are people willing to take on? And so that's ultimately why we think it's important to put this to the voters, so that they can make the ultimate decision.
And how much does this cost to actually build affordable housing here in the city of Charleston right now?
So that's another place that we're getting really good at leveraging money we have. there are, I think, more things that we could do, kind of akin to the fee and lieu system that we have for certain types of development, where, if you want to build a certain thing, maybe get a little extra density, then you need to either build affordable housing on site or pay into a city fund that we can then use and leverage and provide gap financing, so that we can work with the private sector on what they're already doing. I think it would be a big mistake for anybody, for me to tell the public, or for the public to believe that government solves this problem on its own. We've got to work with our private partners to build the housing necessary. And there's an example of that in my district. And listening to the folks who are much smarter about financing and the banking kind of things is endlessly fascinating to me. But there's really a lot of good ideas out there, and there's a lot of will. With the kind of pot of money that we're building up, and that could be built up if we pass this PUD for Union Pier. I really think we'll be able to start making a dent in the problem that we have.
So how is the city leveraging that affordable housing money right now?
Sure. There are people about this who are a lot smarter about this than I am. But basically, we're using that to borrow additional money. We are figuring out opportunities to provide that gap financing, so that missing piece that allows a private entity to build affordable housing and keep it affordable. That's the key, right? What is an apartment that's affordable for 20 years really get us? We're looking for affordable in perpetuity.
So who are those private sectors right now that are actually building affordable housing in your district?
I wish I could remember the name of the folks building it. I just had an event with the Charleston Metro Chamber with them not too long ago, and I read the nice article in the Post and Courier about it. But you'd be surprised at how many private developers are interested in helping with this problem. Obviously there's going to be something in it for them, but that's not a bad thing. And so, I think it would be a mistake to let ideology get in the way of practical solutions here. And so, I genuinely think it would surprise people that when we sit down to talk about, they want to build this development in my district, they also want to have like a side conversation about affordable housing. A lot of folks are genuinely interested in putting their money where their mouth is to help solve these issues.
So you're getting this affordable housing in your district. Do you have the density and infrastructure for all of this?
And that is a really great question. And, that goes back to planning, and we are working on a big, multi-year zoning code rewrite that's going to help with, where we put density. But we've got to get away from the idea that density is a scary word. You don't want to build densely, I think, on the edges of town, where, we're going to have to put all these cars on the road. And so, is building density in my district as good of an idea as, say, density at Union Pier? I think that's a perfectly legitimate question for people to ask, and it's a question that I ask every time I'm in one of these meetings. And so it's going to tax the infrastructure on 61. There's no question about that. I think it's up to us. I think it's up to the county to work with the state and our state legislative delegation and DOT to make sure that we are planning for the future and working towards getting the money to make frankly a big infrastructure improvement along 61. And I can tell you we've got some relatively new, hardworking legislators that I know are at work on that in Columbia right now. And so we'll get there. We come back to this classic problem of the developments there before the infrastructure is. We've got to get better at that, like I said, and we will with this zoning code rewrite. But you know, there's more than just infrastructure as well. We can build more of these, live, work, and play type mixed use communities that will prevent people from having to get on the roads, right? That, will be accessible if somebody wants to walk or if somebody wants to bike. And so that there's a lot of ways to tackle this, and we ought to be really taking an all of the above approach. I think what we're thinking about with Sumar Street is exactly what this can be, right? So we have the Ashley Landing shopping center where Faison owns that property. It's zoned for what they want to build now. They want to build apartments, and that's their land. They get to build what they want on their land as long as the zoning allows it, and it does. But we need to give those people something to do, right? And so if they build those apartments and we build what I would like to go at Sumar Street, and I hope we could talk about that, somebody could conceivably work in an office on that site at Sumar Street, live in that apartment, go shopping at the Publix in that shopping center, go to the gym in that shopping center, go to Frothy Beard and get a beer, go to the new restaurants that are at Sumar Street and enjoy themselves on a Friday night, catch a little concert there with their family, and then go to a city council meeting later that week at the new civic space there. All without ever having left that area or gotten in a car. And that is what West Ashley is missing. That's the kind of thing you could do downtown. And that's why, when we think about building these things, we are so married to the parking requirements. What if we could get more creative and people didn't have to get in the car and park? I think that's part of where we need to go. I mean, parking is never going to be completely a thing of the past, I don't think. At least not my lifetime. But it's just an example of the kind of creativity we can have if there's the will.
So what exactly would be the ideal parking requirements there?
There's really, really smart people who study this, and our planning department is full of very, very smart people who went to college for exactly that kind of thing. And so, Sumar Street's a really great example because we want to have these multiple uses, right? So during the day, there could be city employees there. There could be private sector folks working in an office, say a law office or insurance office or something like that. And then at night, they're there during the day. They all leave at night. People are coming in for dinner at those restaurants, and so you don't need double the parking at that site to accommodate all those uses. You need the parking during the day, and then you need the parking at night. And we can accomplish the same thing with, relatively minimal parking if we are thinking hard about, the kind of uses that we can combine.
And I'm looking at that spot right now because I work in that area all the time. But let's talk about public transportation. How would you factor that into that?
And CARTA's doing, I think, really incredible things, and we've got to be thinking about what they're going to be doing in the future with the rapid transit line. And so, when we build these new developments, and it won't always be the city being as involved as we are in Sumar Street. We've got to be thinking about, okay, well, where's the bus stop going to go? How often is the bus coming to that area? But and those are going to be sort of for longer trips. But we've got to be thinking about multimodal paths so that somebody can walk or bike and do that safely. We've got to think about what the county is going to do with some transportation improvements to get to Sumar Street, where folks who live over off Orange Grove Road are going to be able to cut through and get directly to a stoplight with a safe crossing, and they can get across Sam Rittenberg and over to Sumar Street. So, there's a lot of ways to think about public transportation, and we've got to keep and luckily the chairman of CARTA just happens to serve on city council and is an excellent member of council and somebody who constantly drives this conversation forward and reminds us okay, are we thinking about transit? And that's a great asset to have, and something that that we need to keep at the forefront of our mind, not in the back of our mind.
And I hope to get Mr. Seekings back on Quintin's Close Up soon. And I know I have Brantley Moody coming up later this summer, so we can talk about that and other issues. So how do you drive that conversation about public transportation now with Charleston County?
Charleston County's completely on board. This is it's not a conversation that anybody has to drive anymore. I find that when I'm having conversations with constituents, they're asking about it. I don't think that was true not that long ago. And so this is the kind of thing that's at the forefront of people's minds as traffic congestion increases. How do we get cars off the road? And I'm not going to pretend that I have a foolproof solution, but again, I think it's another area where we've got to employ this all of the above approach to use the resources we have to accomplish the goals we have.
What resources do you have now?
Frankly, the city does not have significant resources for public transportation. It's like when we talk about the city taking over a road from the DOT. We don't have a road budget. We have no funding source like the county does. We're limited by state law in what we can ask our citizens to pay in taxes. And there's plenty of good reasons for that. But it does create some challenges. And maybe we do have some new opportunities with some legislation that went through last year. I think we're still looking at what those options might be as far as some sort of a use fee. But I think what we really need to do is planning for CARTA. I think that's the way that we can be most useful. The city, besides police, the city's primary power is land use,
right?
And that's where I think we can really get the biggest bang for our buck.
So once this project comes to fruition, that is, how many cars do you expect will be taken off the road with the public transportation idea that you all are working on?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. Like I said, when these conversations come up, typically Councilman Seekings takes the mic and dazzles us all with his knowledge of public transportation, and that's a great thing. So I don't have the exact number for you, but we hope that it'll sort of build on itself, right? Success breeds success. So if we can if we can build this low country rapid transit and it's working, more people are going to start to use it. So when we introduce these things, we need to sort of take the long view of it, that we're working towards maybe the ridership that we want and reducing the number of cars on the road over time.
What ridership do you want for that area, for Sumar Street?
We're gonna have to increase the public transportation available there. And we'll have to see exactly what option we end up approving at City Council next week. I hope it's option one. I hope it's the most robust use of that site. I really hope, frankly, I would expect that more people are going to be walking and biking there than even taking the bus.
Let me turn quickly over to. Oh, someone sent me a message. Okay. Oh. My brother's outside to pick me up, so let me. I live away from the peninsula from now on. But let me talk to you about Union Pier very quickly. According to WCVD, the South Carolina Ports Authority submitted a draft of their planned use development to the City of Charleston on January 30th. The project actually breaks down the proposed redevelopment of the 70-acre space. We know what has happened recently. Did you know, Councilman, what the basis on which the Ports Authority is asserting its rights for the Union Pier?
So through a very unfortunate series of decisions before I was ever on the scene here in Charleston, they got that land for I think it was free, and so we need to be very clear with people. I think a lot of folks think that we have a lot more control over this site than we do. It would surprise people, I think, to know that it's already zoned for pretty much the density that has been proposed in this planned unit development. But the Ports Authority would prefer, I think, to sell it off in one chunk with a plan for what they're going to pass on to the city, and what will be created there. And they're doing some really great things. I think they're all of the buildings will still need to go before the Board of Architectural Review. And so just by passing this planned unit development, it doesn't mean that the renderings are immediately going to come true. This is going to be a significant process to develop this, and the public will continue to have say over it through the BAR. And so I would expect just like the new hotel that's going to replace the Days Inn, that really these buildings are going to have some serious architectural merit. The developer is that's working with the Ports Authority, Lowe. I will say that I'm really impressed with their public engagement process so far. I'm really impressed that the first time I talked to the folks from Lowe, including Jacob Lindsay, who used to work here, they all gave me their cell phone numbers. Right? They said, "Call me if you have any questions. Call me if your constituents have any questions." I mean, I think what the Ports Authority is doing with this land is something that they don't have to do, but working to benefit everybody, and I think that's really admirable. And I think we'll get to something that is going to just be something that I will take my kid downtown in 15 years, and take a walk from the aquarium all the way down to Waterfront Park, and talk about this wasn't here. This was just a plan all those years ago when I was on city council, and what an incredible thing that we can walk all along this waterfront, that we can go to this waterfront park, that we can sit out there and listen to music, and go to a restaurant with like an outdoor cafe that has on these, part of it they talked about like an 18-foot wide sidewalk so that we can have outdoor dining, and again gets back to what's everybody want to do in Charleston, be outside.
Cool.
And so there's a lot of talk about negatives and quote unquote make it Charleston and slow it down. I don't agree with any of that. I think they are working really hard to make it Charleston, and we're working with them to make this work for our city. And so I think some of the detractors from in the union peer discussion haven't exactly been the most fair about what the facts are. And we're listening, and I will say that my constituents all the way out in outer West Ashley are not always so concerned with what's going on in the peninsula, but this is such a big issue for our city that I've been very involved in it. And I like what I hear. Changes are needed, but we're working through that process, and I think it's going to lead to something really great.
But Councilman, is the interior of this particular project too dense?
Like I said, density doesn't scare me. Density in the right places is going to create a living, breathing, vibrant city that survives into the future. And what are we doing as leaders of Charleston if we aren't thinking about how Charleston survives into the future? This could be a world-class new neighborhood with state-of-the-art flooding infrastructure, protection from rising tides and hurricanes. It could provide so many units of badly needed housing that will make a dent in the supply and demand problem we have. And it's all downtown where folks can walk to whatever they need to. They would make big infrastructure improvements to that part of East Bay that winds through. Right. It is not particularly fun to drive on. They would create basically a new corridor to go down Washington Street in a more straightforward fashion.
Wow.
So there are so many opportunities here. And density allows all that. It allows the developer, the ultimate owner of the site, to be, to do more in terms of creating green space. When we allow when we view this as a give and take, as opposed to the city is going to come tell you what to do, we allow so many more incredible options. And I think that's I think that's the proper way to view this, as a give and take. We can't give them everything we want. And frankly, if we try to take too much, they're just going to sell it off piecemeal. And then we won't have any of this kind of control over it. So we've got to be smart in how we approach this. It's too important of a project not to give it our all and really engage in this process and build something that works for everybody.
But isn't this, Councilman, another fill in the bill approach?
I don't think so. We've gotten, we banned fill and build effectively in low-lying parts of the city, and so this will be elevated. This will require significant infrastructure improvements in the area. It may require a pump to make it all work, and so again, smarter people than me are looking at that in our stormwater department, and this will go through. We have some of the most stringent stormwater design standards probably in the country, and for very good reason, because we've made mistakes in the past as a city, and I can tell you, I live in an area that feels the brunt of some of those mistakes. But we're getting a lot better in our approach to these, in our technical review, the standards that these have to be built to. And so I don't think we're contributing to that fill and build problem at all if we go forward with this plan unit development in whatever shape it ultimately takes before it comes to us.
Where is the City of Charleston's water management plan?
We're working on that. We have had some meetings recently. The consultants are meeting with community members, and I'm not sure exactly the timeline, but I know they'll be working on it for the rest of this year, and then we'll probably need to kick in some more money for them to finish it next year.
So, speaking of money, if you put a TIF on the union payer, Councilman, how long will it be before the city actually sees any tax revenue from this?
That's a good question. I'm not. It would. It would be as these buildings are coming online. So as the first building is gets its certificate of occupancy, then they would be generating new new property taxes, and so that money would go to the city to fund these infrastructure improvements. So you would physically be able to see the tax money coming in to pay for the improvements as the buildings go up.
And yes or no, would the TIF be a bit of a crutch to development?
I've heard arguments for and against TIFs. I think they can be a wonderful tool, but we do have to be careful with them, right? Because they I don't know if this is the best word choice, but they siphon money from other places, and so money that would otherwise be going to the school district would be coming to pay for these infrastructure improvements. But if we don't make the infrastructure improvements, then this remains a piece of concrete that's not generating any tax revenue at all. And so that's the give and take. I mean, these are all new taxes that are not going to anybody currently.